Hey, I'm Greg from Greater Orlando Realty, and back to the G-Man Show in 2023. We've got a great show coming your way. I've got a fantastic guest this morning, Marty Kaiser. Happy New Year. How was your Christmas?
Oh, it was really good, Greg, and Happy New Year to you as well.
Thank you so much. You know, later on we got at the Mortgage Minute, but for now, let me and you talk about the new market, how it's switching. It's changing from a seller's market to maybe a buyer's market. I'm not even sure. You tell me.
Well, yeah, we've had a dramatic adjustment. Probably started around the summertime this year, May, June, and the biggest thing is we had such a runaway appreciation for the period of about a year and a half or 2 years that, of course, sellers were expecting huge gains on their investment, and then buyers were kind of buying from they had to make a decision quickly because inventory was lacking, prices were going up daily, so there was a lot of pressure on buyers. So it was a very hectic environment. And then between inflation and the interest rates going up rapidly, they've pretty much doubled in the last 6 months. It's created a new dynamic. So it's what you referred to as a transition. So we've made a rapid transition, which is always challenging as opposed to a gradual transition.
Surely is.
So people's expectations and perceptions are not on the same wavelength.
So what are buyers thinking against what are sellers thinking? I mean, they're obviously at different polar opposites now.
Well, buyers, I put buyers in a couple categories. You basically have first-time buyers. First-time buyers were probably affected the most because they were getting approved with their lender at, let's say, a 3% interest rate. So they had a certain amount of buying power. All of a sudden, the rates are at 6-7%, and they were either out of the market or could buy far less. And many times, far less wasn't either the size of the home or an area that they were comfortable purchasing in. So they were kind of perplexed. Sellers, on the other hand, saw their neighbor's house sell for a huge price, and now 6 months later, it might not sell for the same price, and they might feel their house was nicer than their neighbor's.
Yeah.
So it's a question of adjusting people's reality with their perception.
Okay.
And it puts even more challenge and emphasis in the realtor. A good experienced realtor has gone through a lot of market adjustments over the years. You know, I myself got a few gray hairs now, so I saw this happen to a lesser degree in 2005 to 7.
Yep.
And so we're not experiencing exactly the same dynamic, but some similarities.
So you've been in Hunters Creek selling real estate 25 years, Hunters Creek, Lake Nona. Hunters Creek is a really sought after neighborhood area. So it's really affecting you there as well as anywhere else, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. What I'm finding most is two things. We still don't have a lot of inventory. So that's had one impact on prices not going down that much, comparatively speaking. The other thing that's really changed, and I've seen this not only in Hunters Creek, but other popular neighborhoods, is houses that you and I would call average houses. Nothing wrong with them, but nothing superb about them. You know, 6-8 months ago, they were still selling in 3 days, selling for a premium price. Mm-hmm. So the sellers saw that, and they priced their house accordingly right now. And now the house is sitting.
Yeah.
And so the realtor's in a quandary. I myself, for better or worse, I'm pretty much on point with somebody, so I don't sugarcoat things. I give them my opinion as opposed to telling them what they want to hear. But I have a lot of factual data along with my experience, and I've seen most of the homes, so I feel pretty confident in my opinion. So some sellers don't like hearing that. So they may hold off listing their house, or occasionally they'll go with a competitor of mine that tells them something a lot more favorable that's not realistic.
No, I see that a lot actually, not just with you, but with other agents now. One thing I want to talk about, because I think this is super important. I think this is where you've got an edge on everybody else. You have a blueprint for sellers and a blueprint for buyers. So can we talk about the seller's blueprint? What is that about?
Sure. Well, I've always felt it's very important to establish, obviously, a one-on-one rapport with customers. Everybody's situation is different, whether it's their house, their location, their job situation, their relocation plans, whatever the case may be. So once I know that information, then I can give them a specific plan of action on how to best accomplish their goals. And everybody, of course, thinks of the highest price, but that's only one component. There's other things that might take place. Maybe somebody's having financial problems, so I might price the home differently. Maybe somebody has a roof problem. There's a lot of different variables that come into play here, so it's my job to try to, in a concise, complete fashion, give the customer an exact blueprint of the things that we should and shouldn't do to maximize their position.
So they know what to expect getting into it. They understand that there's going to be issues because of this, and this. We'll talk about insurance later on, but there are a lot of things that come into a price for someone to list their home. Condition and price always go hand in hand. So how do you deal with someone that's got a home that's not in great condition, but they want top dollar?
That's always a challenge. You know, when you're discussing things from my perspective that are not positives, you try to bring them up, but you don't want to insult the person, of course, because many sellers have pride of ownership, and or they don't maybe agree with what I'm saying, and or if you've lived in a house for 10 years, you tend to overlook a lot of things because you're comfortable there.
Yes.
But we know from a real estate perspective the things that are going to impact the time on the market and their ultimate yield. So I try in a nice fashion to explain to them, first impression is crucial. It's just like when you meet me, Greg, if you don't like my personality or the way I look at you, or whatever the case may be in the first 60 seconds, you're probably not going to hire me as your broker.
Yeah.
By the same token, when somebody walks into a home, if that first impression is very negative, it's hard to overcome that even if the house has a lot of virtues.
Yeah.
So it's my job to try to educate the sellers on things they can improve without having to take a loan out to make their house more marketable.
You know, one thing I always found difficult to talk to a seller about, you walk through that door on your initial visit to discuss the house, and there's that weird smell. Could be cooking, could be the pet, could be the husband, who knows, but there's a weird smell. How do you tackle that? I always found that very difficult.
Right. I agree totally. At some point in the conversation, depends on what the smell is created by. If it's just kind of a musty odor, then I'll discuss that in a nice way and suggest air fresheners, etc. And those will usually have some benefits. If it's a pet odor, that's a bigger issue for two reasons. Number one, people may be allergic to pets or they just really can't stand the odor. Secondly, people love their pets.
Yes.
And they don't feel they have a pet odor in the house.
No.
And it's unfortunately a big negative if you're not a pet owner, especially if you have kind of what I call a mangy dog, or maybe you've had a cat that's unfortunately urinated on the carpet at some point. Those are big issues and that you have to address them.
Well, they're all issues that you encounter on a day-to-day basis, and I know you do a fantastic job with it. So how does someone get hold of you, Marty, if they want to list their house in Hunters Creek, Lake Nona? How do they get hold of you?
Well, the easiest way is they can reach me on my cell phone via text or phone at 407-595-9700, or they can always email me at marty@floridasells.com.